Hi guys, hope you're alright. It's been strange weather recently. I've had to put my jumper back on. So today we're starting revising just for a week the stuff you asked for on family. Now one thing I saw came up quite frequently was theoretical perspectives on the family, and that makes sense because it was like the very first thing we did at the start of year 12. So I'm going to start by going through those. Today's lesson is going to be on Marxist perspectives on the family. Now, something I tend to see confused a little bit is the key terms conflict and consensus theory. So remember, Marxist is a conflict theory because it sees conflict in society between the ruling class and the working class. Ruling class being the guys who own the means of production, and the working class being anyone who doesn't own the means of production, so have to sell their labour in order to make money. So they think that all societies, institutions contribute towards capitalism and supporting the ruling class. And what we are going to be looking at this lesson is 3 reasons why they think that. Now, before you go any further, a few of you have been really good about asking about kind of key terms and things like that, which are particularly important if you're going for an A grade, because that top band asks you to be conceptually detailed. So what I've done is I've written you a list of key terms that you can link into an essay that's relevant to Marxism. So if I could get you to please write a definition for those key terms. If you're not sure about any, let me know. The one I'm just going to go through with you, because I think if people googled it they might get the wrong idea, is function. So when we talk about functions of the family or the education system, it sounds strange because function we tend to mean something good. It doesn't necessarily have to be good. It's how each theory thinks that the family contributes to wider society. So in this case, functionists think the family contributes to a capitalist society which they're critical of. So a function is the way that a particular agency of socialisation contributes to society. The other ones you should be okay with. Subordination of the female sex is basically the idea that women are trapped in monogamy, which is actually going to be the first theory we look at. Okay, so what you can see in the first box, there is 3 pictures, one of Caveman Day, one of the development of industry, and one of the Communist Manifesto. Now this shapes a timeline of what Marxists think of the family. So firstly, I've just realised I was trying to hide the fact that I'm in my pyjama bottoms and I've just shown it. Right, so basically what we can see is that in caveman society, Marx noted that there wasn't a family, there wasn't an idea of a family. And what that means is the family as we see it today with a mum, a dad, a child, isn't actually a natural process because it didn't exist in very early society. So around caveman society, if you want to write it's around that image, in caveman society, Karl Marx called it like a promiscuous horde. Promiscuous horde is a good key term to get noted down if you're aiming for an A star. And basically there was no monogamous relationships, people didn't know who fathered their children, and people would just share the responsibility of childcare. At that time it was a communist society. Marx called it a primitive communism, where people would share the workload evenly and all of the resources from that workload, such as like food and building and technology, was just shared out equally. So even though not everyone would go and hunt the mammoth, all the meat would have been shared out equally to make sure everyone gets it. And what Marx is saying here is this is what's natural. Now, as time developed, so did technology, and we started to develop industry. So we started to develop mills, we started to develop factories. With that development, a very small, about 1% of society takes ownership of these means of production, like factories and mills. If you think of yourself, right, as an extremely rich owner of a business, and you've got all this wealth, and you're going to want to pass it down to your legitimate heirs. Now, the problem is, if females are allowed to sleep with whoever they want to sleep with, you are never going to know who your legitimate children are. So what Marx thinks is that marriage was developed in order for these rich, successful people to lock women down into a relationship so they could only have sexual intercourse with them. These rich business people then know who their children are and can pass on their wealth to them. So Marx is very critical of this idea of marriage. They see it as subordinating women to only having one sexual partner purely so the men can know who to pass their wealth down to. And so it only serves these like really rich men. So, looking in the future, we obviously know that Marxists think one day there's going to be a revolution and communism is going to return and everything's going to be shared equally. And with this, Karl Marx thinks the family will disappear and we will become kind of like a promiscuous horde again, where people will take collective responsibility caring for the children and no one will care who the biological father of the baby is. Okay, so that's your first paragraph on a question on Marxism. So if around each of those images, if you could draw a timeline of what the family is like at this time and why the family is like that. Okay, now our second point is Marxists think that the family performs an ideological function. And what we mean by an ideological function is it controls the way we think and view the world. And what the family does is it shapes the way in which both children see the world and how adults see the world in a way that serves the purpose of capitalism. Okay, now the family, if you think about it, is a mini hierarchy, and just to remind you, it's a triangle with, in wider society, you'd have the manager at the top and the workers underneath. That, if we think about it objectively, that's not fair. So why do we accept that? Why do we accept one person being able to tell us how to behave? Well, the answer is, as children, we're taught that. You have one person, this was written in 1950, so Marx considered it the father, would control all the children's behaviour, how much money they had, what they could do with their time, when they went to bed. So you learn to accept being told what to do. Secondly, even though we've been socialised this, when adults enter the workplace, Marx made a point that adults are entering these poor conditions and then they're not doing anything about it, they're not rebelling against it. And Marxists had an answer for this as well. They said, however angry someone gets during the day, they come home and their wife de-stresses them, they relax them, they make them a dinner, they treat them nicely. And that stops a man from building up enough stress to overthrow capitalism. So although it kind of sounds nice, like you're coming home to a nice environment, Marx thinks this is a bad thing because people need to maintain their anger to overthrow capitalism. Okay, now the third and final point is that families are a source of profit. So remember, the overall drive of the capitalists, the ruling class, is they want to increase a maximum amount of profit. So they want these working class people to be buying into their products. Some of the products we buy, if you think about it, are useless. Like we'll spend a lot of money buying a t-shirt because it has a designer brand on it. Now, how do the ruling class get us to spend our money on things like that? They use advertising techniques, particularly aimed at families, to get them to spend money. So for adults, it's saying if you don't have this particular product, you should, because it's a source of your identity. They direct adverts at young children to get them to use their pester power. So if you remember that King Curtis kid we saw who like stomped his foot and stuff to get chicken nuggets, maybe think about when you were a kid and what you would do to get like what you wanted. They use that pester power to get parents to spend their money. It might be things like Disneyland. And finally, adverts are driven to make teenagers feel inferior and get bullied if they don't spend their money on certain products. Now that might be latest clothes, it might be having the latest phone, it might be downloading the latest app, but each of these things encourage teenagers to get their parents to spend money or they will get bullied. Right, and then at the end of that you have 3 evaluation points. I would like you to say for each evaluation point which paragraph it links to and explain why. If you have any problems with any of that, please let me know. I hope you're all alright. Cheers, bye.